despite Nintendo being under fire these past couple of weeks because of the egregious jump in the prices of their games and many other questionable business practices. You can't deny though that the legacy of Nintendo's classic franchises is a long and storied one, with a history that spans decades. From the early days of the NES to the SNES and beyond, Nintendo has consistently delivered timeless experiences that have captivated audiences worldwide. The company's commitment to innovation to some degree and quality has allowed their classic franchises to endure even as the gaming landscape has evolved. Now, in my previous video, I did go in on Nintendo quite a bit when it came down to their prices, the questionable business practices, and of course the miscommunication with a lot of their products. But today, I want to add a little bit of more positivity to what the Switch 2 could potentially be like for a lot of franchises that are still in Nintendo's backlog. And also just to beg the question of what happened to 3D Mario at the Nintendo's Switch 2 Direct? Well, we're going to talk about all of that today. What's up guys, Tactics here with another video for you. Let's not waste any more time with this and dive right in. The impact of Nintendo's classic franchises on gaming culture cannot be overstated. They have inspired countless other games and their influence can be seen in many modern titles. And then of course Nintendo turns around and tries to bully some of these games for taking inspiration from some of their own franchises. But setting all that aside for now, Nintendo has a history of successfully revamping their classic franchises for new audiences, and no, I'm not talking about no remasters or remakes of old classic games here. I'm talking about building new games from the ground up. I mean, just take a look at Donkey Kong Bonanza for example. It's taken Nintendo several years to be able to get back on the DK train, but we finally got our first DK game that is 3D after so many years since Donkey Kong 64, and I couldn't be any happier to see DK make his glorious return in full-on 3D. Like I said before in a previous video, why Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70 and Mario Kart World gets slapped with the fat $80 is beyond me. Well, not really. I might actually have an answer as to why this is the case. Nintendo understands that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was a massive success mainly because of how many copies that they were able to sell, being literally their best-selling game across the entire generation of the Switch 1 console. So Nintendo figured that it's a possibility that they would be able to get away with making a game with the Mario Kart brand on it by selling it for $80 and also claiming that the game has a load of content in it. But in actuality, I think it's mainly just because they understand the success of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so they decided to go with the $80 price tag with Mario Kart World. And I can only assume that there will be other franchises that were extremely successful on the Switch 1, such as Zelda, that will also be getting that $80 premium price tag slapped onto it sometime in the Switch 2's lifespan, because they know that these types of games are widely loved by the fanbase and will most likely sell out just because of their previous success from early titles. And although this may seem like a really scummy move, it is also, I guess in a sense, a well thought out business strategy. But that doesn't necessarily mean I have to like it though. But what does all this got to do with Nintendo's old franchises making a triumphant comeback on the Switch 2? Well, I said that before that Nintendo was planning on using the last little year or two of the Nintendo Switch 1's lifespan to bring back old franchises and to give them a little bit more relevance in the spotlight. But what I didn't know or think about was that they were probably planning to use the success of the Switch 1 in order to promote some of their old franchises at the beginning of the Switch 2's lifespan. Just take a look at this lineup so far. I mean, the evidence are already starting to show. We've got Metroid Prime 4 making a grand return, and now we know that Donkey Kong Bonanza is here as well. Two game franchises that have been absent for many years, and they've only been getting small bits and pieces sprinkled in with remakes and remasters. But now all of a sudden, boom, we have a new 3D Donkey Kong game and also a long-standing series in Metroid Prime making a return on the Switch 2. And we know that Nintendo has other smaller IPs that could easily make a return here as well in a much grander scale thanks to the Switch 1's success and the Switch 2's improvements. So like, what other IPs or franchises that are a little bit smaller that Nintendo could bring back on the Switch 2? Well, there was another game that I always harped on about besides 3D Donkey Kong, and that being Star Fox. Now, this might just be a bit of nostalgia talking here, but I've always been a huge fan of Star Fox 64. In fact, I would say it was the only Star Fox game I ever played and actually truly got into. But I know that there have been other games out there in the franchise that have not been so successful as Star Fox 64, but regardless, I would still love to see a new Star Fox game come back. With the Switch 2's new hardware improvements, I actually believe that Star Fox could be something similar to maybe Starfield, I would say. Obviously, you have your space shooter moments where you go out into space and you take down other spaceships and dogfights and all that. But I would still like to see more of a story-driven narrative in Star Fox. I would like to see the characters outside of their spaceships from time to time interacting with each other, maybe even going on missions with certain characters other than the standard unit that Fox is usually accompanied by. Like for example, in one mission, maybe Fox has to team up with the other Fox lady. I don't remember her name unfortunately, but that could shake things up a bit. Plus, there's other characters or maybe even new characters that they can introduce that Fox would have to cooperate with on certain missions. Obviously, introducing new characters into the story can add to more lore and backstories of some of these characters and just give the player a little bit of a fresh new start on the Star Fox series. I'm not gonna lie here, there are just so many things that Nintendo can do with Star Fox at this point with the amount of power that the Switch 2 has. So it just makes me wonder just what exactly could they be working on with this series, or will they truly let Star Fox as a series just die out? Now, another major game that I think could really benefit with the Switch 2's hardware and power is Bomberman. Not to sound like a broken record when I say this, but it's just something about the 64 era that just hits different. Bomberman 64 was probably one of the greatest Bomberman games out there. Some of these recent Bomberman games that they've been putting out has just been so lackluster. And it just, I don't know, I don't know how to put it. It's just, they're not giving Bomberman the grand adventure or the time and respect that it deserves and needs. Like, I just remember Bomberman 64 starting with the city being attacked by some baddies, and everything is just being destroyed, and it's up to Bomberman to go down there and take care of business. And then you've got Bomberman the Second Attack, where basically it's a sequel to the 64 version, where some of these baddies try to come back and take Bomberman out. But my man obviously sends them packing for a second time. And then finally, probably one of my favorite platforming games of all time, Bomberman Heroes. I loved this game back in the day. Watching Bomberman use his gadgets to both fly, hover over the stage, or even skateboarding down certain stages while blowing everything up in his path was just such a dopamine rush for me as a kid. Imagine what the Bomberman of this day and age could possibly be like. The game could even take inspiration from Donkey Kong Bonanza, where there's a ton of destructible objects, or even the entire environment itself is destructible, and with Bomberman being, well, the guy that he is who likes to blow things up, can be blowing up any and everything up alongside his enemies. Now I know in the recent games they've depicted that there are multiple different kinds of Bomberman out there, but I still want them to be able to have like this sort of focus on the white Bomberman, since he is basically like the captain. So I would like to see this guy in action in a more story focused sort of setting, I guess. I want to see this guy using new gadgets to make himself more powerful. I don't know, maybe even have some of the other Bombermen out there who might be good with technology or something, and they can provide him with certain gadgets and upgrades to his abilities, and then maybe there's another Bomberman out there who can help him upgrade his bums to be able to, I don't know, maybe create black holes or something. And if they want to have some sort of classic style to Bomberman, then they have the multiplayer there that they can use for that. In fact, I would say probably the best multiplayer that Bomberman has ever had came from Bomberman 64. So if they were to go back to the classic style of Bomberman, I think the 64 style for online multiplayer would probably be the best choice. It just feels like ever since Konami picked up the Bomberman IP, they really haven't done very much with it to make it stand out, or to even modernize the franchise and bring it into the forefront like some other franchises. I truly believe that there is so much untapped potential that Konami just refuses to go into for this series. It's honestly quite a shame. But perhaps with the Switch 2, and thanks to it riding off of the success of the Switch 1, there could be a possibility that we could see them maybe give this series one more go and try to make it as grand as possible. I actually believe if they were to give this game at least one major try, we could see a very similar resurgence of the series, much like with Fire Emblem, and how Fire Emblem Awakening basically brought the Fire Emblem series into the forefront. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. And finally, the last game that I really want to talk about, and I will be brief with this one, considering that I don't necessarily have a lot to say about it, and I haven't really finished the game either. The Kid Icarus series, I believe, would also be a fantastic game that could easily capture the hearts of many people, from its witty dialogue to its interesting characters, and of course the gameplay features that we got to experience in Kid Icarus Uprising. I truly think this game could easily become a fan favorite for a lot of people, more than what we got from just Kid Icarus Uprising. I can see this game being even better if they were to just take it off the 3DS and put it onto an actual system with analog sticks and better controls, and then this game could easily become a top favorite for many people, myself included. Like I said before, I didn't really have much to say about the Kid Icarus series, considering I don't have a whole lot of experience with it except for Uprising, but regardless, I still think that this game was worth noting from the 3DS era. With a lot of these new games coming out for old franchises or lesser known, series like Kirby getting a new Kirby Air Ride game being Kirby Air Riders, and then of course you got obviously Donkey Kong, Bonanza, and Metroid, it just really gave me this sort of nostalgic vibe that made me really want to just talk about a lot of these games. But what does all this have to do with why 3D Mario didn't show up at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct? Well, I already sort of hinted to it already earlier by saying it's mainly just because I think this is the time and the best moment for a lot of lesser known franchises and series to get a chance in the spotlight. We already know that Nintendo is not scrapped for money at all thanks to the success of the Nintendo Switch 1, and I think this is a fantastic time for them to try to experiment with some of their lesser known franchises to give them at least some sort of chance as well. I like to think to them, if some of these games flop or just don't do as well as maybe say something like Mario, then it's not going to be a major hit to them, considering that they've pretty much got plenty of money in the bank to do a little bit of experimenting and see just if anything else can stick that landing. This allows them to put a little bit more time and effort into the next big 3D Mario game and maybe even the next big Zelda as well, so that way they can then justify as to why these games will be $80 goddamn dollars. The possibility of Nintendo's classic franchises making a comeback on the Switch 2 is very exciting, with many fans eagerly anticipating any more news about their beloved games. The potential for remastered titles, new games, and of course innovative gameplay is huge, with Nintendo's commitment to quality and innovation to varying degrees driving their success. The company's classic franchises have stood the test of time, and their enduring popularity and the hate, of course, is a testament to their power. All of Nintendo's lesser known franchises making a comeback on the Switch 2 is a topic of much debate, with many fans wanting to share their thoughts and opinions, and I would love to hear from you guys. Which classic franchises do you want to see make a return, and what do you guys think Nintendo should do to make that happen? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, there you have it guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, be sure to hit that like button for your boy and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more content like this. Check out this video right here if you want to learn what Nintendo is doing to potentially ruin the Switch 2's launch if you haven't seen it. Either way, I appreciate you guys for the 400 subscribers as well as all of your support, and with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.